This textbook says we have evidence from development. Well, there aren't too many things about this whole theory that make me any angrier than this. So I'm going to try to stay calm while I explain it to you. This BSCS, Biological Science, by the way, let me stop right here and say the BSCS series of textbooks, there's several different publishers. This is Holt, this is Harcourt, Brace Jovanovich, HBJ, they usually abbreviate it. Here's Prentice Hall. Many different publishers of textbooks. They just want one thing, money. They're trying to sell their books, okay? And so they will put in there whatever the people are buying. And if we get some intelligent folks on the textbook selection committee to say, look, your book teaches evolution, we don't want that in there. I mean, let's suppose you were the chief executive officer, the CEO at Holt Reinhardt Winston. And you started getting letters from all across the country from people on school boards and said, look, we did not buy your book this year because you have too much evolution in it. Well, what are you going to do next year? You take it out. But see, the Christians are busy going to church and singing praises, and we should be, okay? But the humanists, there aren't very many of them. 6 to 10% of the population is atheistic, that's all. But they're busy sending letters and lobbying government officials and sending letters to textbook publishers saying, we want more evolution in the textbooks. They'll spend their time getting on the committee to select the books that all of the kids in our county have to use. And I've gone down to the school board meetings many times and gone to textbook selection committee meetings, and it's tragic to see the high number of evolutionists, very unproportional to the population. But they're on the committee to select the books that all of the kids in the county have to use. Anyway, BSCS is one of the worst there is as far as teaching evolution. If you have an opportunity to choose between books, that would be the last one I would choose. Anything published by the BSCS Corporation. Okay, this was clear back in 1978, but look what this book says. The similarity between early stages in the development of many different animals helped convince Darwin that all forms of life shared common ancestors. This is called the embryology argument for evolution. Here's Merrill Earth Science, 93 edition. They show the little folds of skin under the chin of this embryo, a baby developing inside the mother. And then it says it has gill pouches. Now hold it. Are those gills? You know, a fish has gills so he can breathe in the water. Those are not gills. If you want to memorize how evolution supposedly happened, just look at right there on the word farm. F-A-R-M. It's an acrostic. Fish, amphibian, reptiles, mammals. They say fish evolved first and then slowly became amphibian. Amphibian means it has two lives. It lives in the water part of its life and then it lives on land part of its life. Okay? Then fish, amphibian, reptiles, lizards, etc. And then finally they turned into birds and mammals. So just the word farm, F-A-R-M, will help you memorize the order of how evolution supposedly happened. So here they're saying the human embryo has gills like a fish. What they're going to teach here, this embryology argument, you can see the word there, embryology, the study of embryos. They're going to say that the embryo in the mother goes through those 4 stages before it becomes a human. So when it first starts to grow, it's actually in the fish stage with gills. Those are not gills, okay? This whole thing is a lie. Those little folds of skin actually develop into bones in the ear and glands in the throat. They never have anything to do with breathing. They are not gills. They're not even vestigial gills. They're just a little fold of skin. That's all they are. I've seen fat people that have 5 or 6 chins. They cannot breathe through any of them except the top one. Okay, those are not gills. They're just folds of skin, that's all. What happened back in 1860? This man, Ernst Haeckel, you need to know his name, write this down. Ernst Haeckel, he was an embryology professor. He taught at the university in Germany, a university called the University of Jena, J-E-N-A. Ernst Haeckel was an embryology professor. Students would take his class and they would study embryos of different animals. You cut open the fish and take out the undeveloped fish eggs, and then you look at them under the microscope, and you study the different animals in the embryonic stage to see how they develop. A very fascinating study, by the way. Ernst Haeckel taught this stuff at the University of Jena. Then in 1860, he read this book, Charles Darwin's book. This book came out in 1859. Now, in 1859, Russia was still controlled by a czar, 1850s, 1860s. Yeah, up until 1917. You know who the czar was in doesn't matter, 59, I wouldn't know. But during the 1850s, slavery was still going on here in America. When did the Civil War start? 1861. So in 1859, when this book came out, we still had slavery. The title to the book is The Origin of Species, but there's more to it. The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. See, Darwin was a racist. We'll get into more of that later. He thought there are favored races. One race must be better than the others. And Ernst Haeckel read this book. Now, Ernst Haeckel was in Germany. Guess what happened to the Germans over the next 70 years? They became what they thought was the master race. And this book had a very profound influence on the rise of Adolf Hitler. He thought the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Norwegians and Germans were superior. They were the Aryan race. And this book started all that thinking. 1860, Ernst Haeckel read this book, and it changed his whole philosophy of life. Darwin predicted in his book that they would find evidence for his theory. All he did was come up with a theory. He said, I think all life forms have a common ancestor. Well, where's the evidence? There was none. After 9 years, Ernst Haeckel started getting worried. I like this theory, I like evolution, but I don't see any evidence. I think I'll make some. Ernst Haeckel took a drawing of a human and a dog embryo. This is 4 weeks after conception. He changed the drawings and made them look very similar. Here are his fake drawings. He lied. He enlarged the head on the dog, and he decreased the size of the head on the human. He changed the eye details. He changed all sorts of things. Notice how similar they look. I'll back up one and show you. There's the actual drawings. If you take time to look at the actual drawings, the right ones, compared to his, you'll notice all sorts of changes. There they are, one on top of the other. He lied, basically. Ernst Haeckel actually did this with quite a few different animals. He made the drawing of a human, of a salamander, of a fish. Look how the very top row here, all of them look very similar, don't they? He made a gigantic poster of this drawing and traveled all over Germany and held seminars on evolution to prove the evolution theory. Because remember, Darwin's book came out in 1859. He read it in 1860. 1869, he started traveling and speaking on evolution to try to promote the theory. We ought to believe in this theory because here's the proof. Poof, up comes this big chart. See, look at that. All the animals are similar in the embryonic stage. And he said that proves that the human starts off as a fish. And then it becomes an amphibian. Then it becomes a reptile. And finally becomes a human, and it's born after 9 months. Well, now, hold on just a minute. This professor from St. George, Richardson from St. George Hospital Medical School in London said just a couple years ago, a set of 19th century drawings, that's Ernst Haeckel's, that still appear in reference books are badly misdrawn, says an embryologist in Britain. Although Haeckel confessed to drawing from memory and was convicted of fraud at the University of Jena. Well, that's interesting. That's where he taught. If I understand the details on the story, I may have some of the minor details confused here, but I believe 6 professors accused Haeckel of faking these drawings, so they held a trial at the University of Jena. Professor Haeckel was on trial. He was convicted of fraud. They said, Ernst, you lied. In 1874, Ernst Haeckel was convicted of fraud. Write that date down, 1874. In 1874, the idea that the human embryo has gills was proven false. He came up with this idea in 1869. So for 5 years, people are teaching this. On top are Haeckel's drawings. On the bottom are actual photographs taken by Richardson of the same animal. Now, either Haeckel is an extremely lousy artist, or he's a liar. His drawings on top, he said that's what the turtle looks like in the embryonic stage. I don't think so, Ernest. I mean, have you ever seen a turtle in the embryonic stage? What about the salamander? I'd say he's nowhere close, right? He just flat lied. That's all there is to it. So this was proven in 1874. It was proven that Ernst Haeckel had lied. His own university convicted him of fraud. But guess what? Haeckel's exact same chart is used this year at the University of West Florida in Pensacola as evidence for evolution. It was proven wrong 125 years ago. Why would this still be in a university textbook? Guess what? The book used at your school on page 183 is still teaching the same thing, proven wrong 125 years ago. Guess what? Glencoe biology, I've got it in my office there, still teaches the human embryo has gill pouches. Proven wrong in 1874. Here's a biology textbook used in the Troy State University, a college textbook. Still teaching them. Human embryo has gill pouches. Biology, A Journey into Life, Arms in Camp, a terrible book as far as, I mean, loaded with evolution propaganda. Look at this, says. It shows them a picture of a 5 to 6 week human embryo. But look what it says at the top. By 7 months, the fetus looks from the outside like a tiny normal baby. But it is not. What are they trying to say here? It's not a baby at 7 months? Well, what is it? 7 months development? You know, a whole bunch of kids born at 5.5 months survive. My son back there running the camera was born at, I think, 7 months and survived. Kind of small, but he made it. And he caught up for the size. But he made it. Kids born 5.5 months old survive. 34% of them. There's a 21-week-old baby. They were doing surgery. They knew something was wrong with the baby. So inside the mother, they cut the mother open, cut the uterus open to do surgery on the baby. Baby's only 5 months along in development. The baby reaches out and grabs the doctor's finger. Tell me it's not alive. Okay? The angel of the Lord said, Behold, thou art with fetus. Is that what they said? I believe he said you are with child, right? See, they want to call it a fetus because it doesn't sound like a child. It's a child the instant it's conceived. It's a human. Life begins at conception. Every doctor knows that knows anything. Why do they keep this lie in the textbooks? I mean, it's been proven wrong 125 years ago. Why do they want you to learn this when you take biology class? What would be the logic for keeping this lie in these textbooks? There's only one reason. Justify abortion. They don't want you to think it's a human yet. You're just killing a fish. You're just killing an amphibian, just a reptile. No, it's a human. See, the Lord told the devil after he tricked Eve, you're going to crawl on your belly and eat dust the rest of your life. And he said, some seed of the woman's going to bruise your head. We went through all this before. How that Satan really wants to reduce the population of the world. He wants to destroy humanity. And we'll skip over all this part. You can get videotape number 1 for more on that. About Satan's goal to destroy the world, to eliminate humans. And one of the ways to do it is by abortion. Here's a little Anna Rosa. She had her arm chopped off in a botched abortion. There's several different ways they abort the babies. One is they just inject salt solution right into the uterus, just a needle right through the outside, and the baby is burned by the salt. And the baby thrashes around in there and finally dies and then is rejected by the body. Others, they cut the baby apart in little pieces and pull them out piece by piece. That's what they were doing with Anna Rosa. The mother was 7.5 months pregnant. Baby could have been born and survived. Cut the arm off, pulled the arm out and said, oh, well, it'll die. Well, she didn't. She survived. As far as I know, still alive today. Missing an arm. Everybody says, oh, that's terrible. Oh, I agree. What if they would have cut her head off instead? We never would have heard of Anna Rosa, would we? Did you know 4,500 babies were killed today? 4,500 more are going to be killed tomorrow. Legal abortion in America. That's just America. Wait till you see what's going on in the rest of the world. Now here in Pensacola, Florida, we've had 2 abortion doctors shot and killed, several clinics blown up or burned down. I didn't blow any clinics up and I didn't shoot any doctors, okay? And I don't think Jesus would do it that way either. He grew up under Roman control. He didn't go around, blowing up bridges and blowing up tanks and stuff like that. But the doctors were murderers, plain and simple. There's just no nice way to say it. They were murdering kids. And anybody that commits an abortion is committing murder. Well, I was flying back from Fort Lauderdale one time. I was preaching down there in Fort Lauderdale. I was flying home. While I was down there in Fort Lauderdale, one of the doctors was shot and killed, Dr. Gunn. This guy killed him. Well, the next day, I was flying up to Pensacola. Right in front of me on the airplane were 2 ladies, forget that, 2 women, from NOW, National Organization for Wild Women. They were coming up to Pensacola, and they were going to march around town, hold up their signs, pro-choice, pro-choice. They were going to put on a big demonstration in honor of this great doctor who gave his life for the cause. As we got off the plane, I'm walking down the gangway with these 2 ladies, women, I noticed on their shirt they had in huge block letters, choice above all. So, being my mild-mannered self, I said, excuse me, ma'am, what does this mean, choice above all? She said, we believe a woman ought to have a right to choose. I said, choose what? She said, choose if she wants to have an abortion. It's her body, I said, well, yes, ma'am. If she wants to abort her body, I suppose that's fine. It looks to me like she wants to abort somebody else's body, though. I said, ma'am, I'm kind of curious about this. I've got 3 kids. I delivered 1 at home. I taught biology and anatomy. I used to raise hamsters. I'm kind of familiar with how this works. I said, tell me, why does the woman's right to choice stop at birth? If that's really what you're worried about is freedom of choice, choice above all, let's let the mother choose to kill the baby after it's born. It's a lot easier. A lot safer. It's dangerous to kill the baby while it's inside the mother. No telling how many women have died from legal abortions. They've got this little long, like a needle with a hook on the end that they will reach in and tear pieces of the baby out. Baby's still alive while they're cutting it apart and pulling it out. Well, very frequently they will snag and cut a hole in the large intestine, the bowel. Now you get poisonous substances into the bloodstream, and the mother dies. Thousands of women have died from legal abortions. Many thousands more have become sterile. They can never have a child again. Have 1 abortion, and they'll never have a baby in the rest of their life because of a legalized abortion. They don't tell you about that, though. I said, hey, why don't we kill the baby after it's born? It'd be a lot safer and simpler. I got a brilliant idea. If it's really choice you're looking for, let's let the mother choose to kill the baby up until it's 2 years old. I know a lot of mothers with a 2-year-old that have thought about it several times. Hey, let's extend abortion rights up until the kid is 18. I bet they'd behave a lot better. Look, son, 1 more time and I'm going to abort you. Teacher, where's Johnny today? Well, he didn't do his homework yesterday, so his mommy aborted him. Hey, grades would skyrocket, wouldn't they? How can we get so dumb as to believe it's okay to kill the baby? The news media and the textbooks always call them pro-choice. Look at this textbook. Pro-choice and anti-abortion demonstrators in Los Angeles. Now just think about that for a minute. Pro-choice is a nice sounding word. That's a positive. Pro-choice. Anti-abortion is a negative sounding word. This sounds bad. Nobody wants to be put in a classification of people who are anti. It's much more positive to say, I am pro-choice. This kind of rhetoric in the news media and in textbooks is all over the place, okay? And it's designed to make the poor kid going to class think, oh, I don't want to be an anti, I'd rather be a pro. It's propaganda, is all it is. How about let's call them pro-death and call us pro-life? How would that be for better names? Much better. You got to watch, or anti-life and pro-life. How's that? When you get into a discussion on abortion, you got to phrase your words carefully. You know, don't say, "Are you pro-choice?" Say, "Oh, are you pro-death? Are you anti-life?" You know, do the same thing to them they're doing to us. Give them a taste of their own medicine. See how they like it. It's always pro-choice, and that's not the issue at all. Well, the news media, though, always ignores the majority. You could get 100,000 people, and I've seen these demonstrations here in Pensacola where there are thousands of people lining the street with their signs, you know. It's a child, you know, pro-life. They have these pro-life demonstrations here in Pensacola, and you have 6 people that are for anti-life, that are pro-death, and the news media gives them all the coverage. These 6 people are going to march around town, and they're going to get all the news media coverage they want because they're coming up here in honor of this doctor who got killed. Now look, the doctor shouldn't have got shot. Not by gun anyway, or Paul Hill shot one. They shouldn't have done that. But why are they treated like martyrs? Why are the doctors treated like martyrs? They were murderers. I've often asked the question, I've never gotten an answer to it. Maybe you can give me an answer. Think about it. During World War II, a bunch of the Jews were taken away and put in concentration camps. They were guarded. Hitler's soldiers were there guarding these camps. If you had gone in and shot some of the guards and rescued some of the Jews, would you be a good guy or a bad guy? You murdered the guards to save the Jews. If somebody kills a doctor and saves a baby, is he a good guy or bad guy? See, our government has put us into this lousy position of having to make that choice. This is the government's fault. Never should have had to make that choice. Now, I don't think they should have shot the doctors, okay? I think we should legislate this. I think we should put them in jail. I think they should have a fair trial, and then they should be executed. Anybody that commits an abortion, any doctor that kills a baby inside the mother is a murderer, and after a fair trial, he should be executed. I feel that strongly about it. And so do a lot of other Americans. The media can't seem to get it right. We get a call every once in a while around here. They say, Mr. Hovind, would you like to take the Pensacola News Journal? It's hilarious. They transfer the call to me. Mr. Hovind, would you like to take the Pensacola News Journal? I say, no, ma'am, we don't have a parakeet. She says, what? You'll get that about Friday. You know, you put the newspaper in the bottom of your parakeet cage. That's all it's good for, in my opinion. I don't want to support the liberal agenda. Here I was waiting for a taxi to take me home, and these ladies, women, I mean, didn't want to talk about this anymore, pro-choice stuff, after I asked them a few questions. So there's this cameraman. He showed up to film the rally. And I thought, wait a minute, come from Chicago to film this rally and there's going to be 6 people? How come when we had 1,000 people lining the streets, you didn't show up to film that rally? 1,000 people against abortion. Where were you guys then? That's why I just can't bring myself to support the liberal media. And I don't care what the news polls say. I'm going to vote for who I think is the best guy, and it doesn't matter at all, whatever the polls say.